In this last video, we'll take a look at the many scripts that run the Virtual Concierge template. We'll also take a look at the JSON files and particularly the session attributes that allow you to customize your scene. All right, in this section, we're going to look through some of the scripts that make this all work. We're going to first start with menu root that is underneath main camera, and if I select the script component, there are several scripts. This is where the majority of the scripts are actually set up. All right, now notice that there's several different scripts instances, and anything with a dotted line around it, it means that something from the entities panel has been drag and dropped and applied to that property. So the speech entity is using Wes, dialogue entity is using Wes, idle sentences, which we'll talk about later, are using the idle sentence JSON file, session attributes using the session attributes JSON file, and so forth. And same thing down here, option entity is using the slot option button, which is pulled from underneath, if I can get it down here, the slot option button. So all these entities are drag and dropped and applied, and that already has happened and been added within a template. But if you want to change it around, of course, you can. So let's walk through some of these and describe what they do. The menu root. Let's start with the menu root. The menu root has the primary scripts that connect Lex and creates the menus. And let's start with the dialogue manager. The dialogue manager is the primary script that connects with Lex. So it communicates with Lex and pulls in Lex information and data, and it also returns information to Lex to then return back to Sumerian, which is what these session attributes and idle sentences are. The create menu. This dynamically creates the menu based on the Lex response. So as I've mentioned before, the menu gets created based on your slots. So if it's pizza or different specific options in your slot types, it'll update it there. There's also some things, and we'll look at this momentarily with the option text selector. We'll look at the HTML briefly, but the spacing and directions, some things that you might want to look at updating. Spacing really just dictates the spacing between the option buttons. The direction is how it actually populates, in whether it is ascending or descending. And the axis, it's all based on the y-axis and aligned on the y-axis. The show event and hide event is using the show and hide events, which has to do with the animation of bringing the menu in and out of the screen. The create menu screen is the script that animates and styles the menu. The start menu screen script has to do with the offset time between the different options. So if I click play, if you notice that they all kind of slide in or animate in, not at the same time, but they all kind of wave in.
What?
If I was to turn this to 0, they would all come in at the same time. So yeah, they all come in at the same time.
What can we do? Bodacious.
And they come in and out at the same time. The confirmation screen definition just creates the actual confirmation screen, which you can kind of see it here already, the yes, no, or return, and defines which are the confirm and abort buttons. The fulfillment screen is the script that creates the receipt, pulling from Lex and Lambda with the order and order number. And the menu utilities, this is an important one, but there's really not much to look at here. But this is the script that makes the menu just essentially look good. It also creates functions that are shared between scripts and used often between multiple scripts. One thing to note is that if we go to Tools and Text Editor, if you want to learn more about each of these scripts, you can click into each one, and there's some descriptions and some notes about how it works, and if you want to learn more about each script. That is the menu root. Let's look at a few of the buttons and some of the animation scripts. There's animation scripts that are really used, I guess not background, let's do load screen. For example, the load screen, which we did not update for the load screen, I forgot to mention, we did not update for the pizza ordering bot. We could have, just something we're not doing in this video. But this just controls the load screen and the animation time. All right, let's go back under menu root. And some of these, like the confirmation buttons, you'll notice that has these transform on events. And I mentioned this in some of the other scripts, but this really just animates the buttons in and out of the screen. So the event name is show. So when it hears that event that's emitted by other events or other scripts, it will then move this button in and out, and the target vector, so that's where it's going and where it's returning to, and the transform type, easing type. And these scripts are actually used on multiple entities. So if I select the receipt, you see it has the same script. The slot option buttons do the same thing as well. And they also have some additional animation scripts. So for clicking, this click FX script will create a sound, and you can specify which sound it's going to be. And it also controls the scale factor, like how big it gets or small it gets when you click on it. Same thing with hovering. If you remember, if you hover on it, the button kind of gets a little bit larger. And it controls the easing type and direction. One thing you might want to do is that if you notice that when we press play, you see how it says test title, and test option very briefly up there. That exists really just so we can see what it looks like here when we're in preview mode or in test mode. So if I go to tools, go to text editor, and I find the slot option text, you see how it says slot test option. If I just delete that and save slot prompt text, it's tough to say. If I delete that and click save and return my scene, it won't exist there now, and then also when I click play, they won't flash on the screen. You notice how you didn't actually see it flash.
What can we do for you today?
In the next section, we are going to look at the JSON and session attributes. All right, in this section, we're going to look at the JSON files and specifically the session attributes. And if I go ahead and click on the JSON tab or filter over here, we'll see 4 different JSON files. And I'm going to just kind of click through these. So this first JSON file is the color options. So this actually just controls the background colors for each of the buttons. So for beverage, it turns it to, I think that is black. And well, just essentially this controls what the colors of the buttons are. So if you want to update that, you can change the color options. Let's go down to the idle sentences. Let's go down to the title options, actually. We'll do that one next. This will dictate if you want unique or specific or even smaller titles to appear up here. You can control it with this file. And this is important because let's say that your slot prompt from Lex is really long. What if it says something like, please, sir, choose your beverage at this time or something, and it's just too long to actually fit in here? You can, keep going back to this, you can choose what goes in there just to make it a little bit shorter. Now let's look at some session attributes. The session attributes is the file that actually will be inserted, or the data that is inserted back into the Lex response. So if you remember when we were looking at Lex, inside the slot prompt, there was things like greeting message, greeting gesture, and awesome messages. So what will happen here is that after you make a selection, it'll insert at random one of these values. So for the greeting messages, sometimes it'll say, hi, what's up? Hiya, hello there. And it'll be different every single time. So it won't be static or always the same. Same thing with the greeting gesture. There's only really 4 gestures in here. You can add more if you'd like. For awesome messages, there's a bunch of different awesome messages. These are used after you make a selection. So it'll say something like, you make a selection for Americano, and he says wicked or groovy. So if you don't want any of those awesome messages, you can delete them. You don't have to have them, or you can change them out. And the confirmation gesture, same type of thing. So these are really just values that get reinserted back into Lex. Idle sentences. So if you don't interact with the scene, and I think it's by default 45 seconds, he'll say one of these sentences. Some are funny, or at least supposed to be funny. Let's go and look at where that is actually used. If you remember the menu root under the dialog manager, the idle sentences is right here. And the idle time is currently set to 45 seconds. I'm going to go ahead and change this to 5 seconds, and we'll press play, and we'll see what happens when we do that.
Hello. What can we do for you today? Did you ever see the Star Trek episode, where Dr. Noonien Sung summons Data to his home on Turlina 3 to give him an emotion chip? Inspiration, anyone?
There's one. 5 seconds later, he'll do another one.
Amazon Sumerian is pretty cool. I mean, not as cool as SageMaker. Maybe not as cool as Amazon Aurora either. Are we cooler than anything? Maybe Mechanical Turk?
Funny Wes. Okay, so that is the idle sentences. And that covers the overview and general workings of the Virtual Concierge template. Thanks again for watching. Make sure to subscribe to our channel, as well as join our Slack community at slack.sumerian.world.